Welcome to the Ragwood Refactory. I'm Tim Talen. I've been restoring airplanes now for about 40 years. And rarely do we ever have an airplane as historically significant as this particular airplane. Now, this is a 1941 Interstate Cadet. And it was built in August of 1941 and sold immediately to a flying club over in Hawaii at John Rogers Airport. Now, this flying club was a very busy, active organization, and they had a number of instructors, one of which was a young lady by the name of Cornelia Fort. Now, Cornelia was only 22 years old at the time, and rare enough to be a pilot, much less a flight instructor. And when she came to Hawaii, she was immediately put to work with flight instructing. Now, unfortunately, there was also another event that was looming on the surface, and that was Pearl Harbor and the beginning of World War II. So on December 7th at 7:30 in the morning, when she was out early with a flight, as a flight instructor with her student, immediately off to her side, here comes a couple of airplanes coming right at her. And when she noticed that they were also shooting at her, she reacted quickly, took over the controls, and avoided a mid-air collision, got out of the way of the streaking Zeros, and quickly landed at John Rogers Airport and took cover. And immediately at that point in time, of course, World War II had started, and she was literally in the crosshairs of this momentous occasion. Now, Cornelia was a civilian, and so with the war on, there was no opportunity for her to be flying over there because civilian flying obviously was curtailed. So she tried to get back to the United States. It took her literally 3 months before she was able to board a ship and get herself back to the United States. And at that point in time, she decided to drive back to her home in Nashville, Tennessee, and visit small airports and do a little bit of civilian flying that she could during this war time. Now, there's the airplane and there's the pilot, but there's also a little bit of a mystery about all of this, because her logbook shows an airplane by the N number of an Interstate Cadet 37345. But we know from historical facts and the registration of this aircraft that 37266 was the airplane that was actually in Hawaii. And so where does 345 come from? Well, in Los Angeles at that time, the California Air Guard was flying interstate cadets, and one of those airplanes was 37345. She more than likely flew that airplane, and that being the last interstate cadet that she had flown, that was what she put into her logbook. Because you would certainly understand thoroughly that with the beginning of World War II, the last thing that you'd be worried about was filling out your logbook on December 7th. So Cornelia, when she got back, she joined the WASPs and was a women's auxiliary service pilot for a brief period of time, but unfortunately she died in an aircraft crash and was the first woman to die in the service of her country as a WASP. So a notable event, not only to be at the very start of World War II, but also to die in service of her country. Now, Cornelia's gone, but what about the little interstate cadet that she flew? And the cadet was, after the war was over, was actually returned to service. They cleaned it up, fixed it up, got it ready to go, and the flying club again continued to fly this particular little interstate cadet. And so they flew it for a while, but it eventually got rather tired and needed a lot of work, and so the flying club sold the airplane. And it went through a couple of owners there in Hawaii, and then eventually got shipped back to the United States, where it was sold again to a couple of owners who thought that they would get it restored, but it lingered and never really got anywhere in the restoration process. Now, at that point in time, a gentleman by the name of Kent Peach purchased the airplane, and hearing about the story and understanding the fact that this was had the potential to be a significant airplane, was concerned about it and talked to Air and Space magazine to try and verify whether this was the right airplane. Was 266 the correct airplane? Because the logbook clearly showed 345. Well, it was a significant story and of great interest to the Air and Space people that perhaps this particular airplane was indeed the correct airplane, but there was still a little bit of a mystery. Now, on the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, Air and Space magazine featured an article about the Interstate Cadet, and they did a very nice story about the Pearl Harbor mystery, which included all of these facts that I've just talked about. Was 266 the correct airplane, or was 345 the correct airplane? Well, we have conclusively determined that 345 was never in Hawaii. It was in Los Angeles on December 7th, 1941, and more than likely was the last interstate cadet that Cornelia flew, and therefore that's why it shows up in her logbook. Now, the airplane came to our shop in September of last year, and we did a complete restoration on the airplane. We went through the whole process in about 4 months, getting it ready for this 75th anniversary. And so it was a complete restoration, complete new fabric, new paint, new everything, and it was very detailed, authentic restoration. We've restored a number of these interstates, and we have learned through the years all of the items that make it an authentic restoration. So the end numbers, the markings, the decals, the stripe, the whole paint scheme, the interior, the instruments, the engine, propeller, everything, every detail of this airplane was brought back to look exactly like it would have looked when Cornelia was flying this airplane on December 7th, 1941. So the airplane's here now being detailed and getting ready for its next life at a museum, and we hope that you'll get the opportunity to see this airplane because here is an airplane that not only had a very famous lady pilot, Cornelia Fort, flying this airplane on December 7th, but it really initiated World War II, was probably the first airplane to get shot at, and interestingly enough, this particular airplane, 266, has survived all these years to be restored, and with that, we hope that you will be able to get to see the Pearl.